me.
It's chase period.
Tell me when you can catch me. You got me, Matthew?
Yeah, I'm looking for it. There, nope.
All right, I got Instagram. Darren, come on, I know you have me.
Chase is in an extremely good mood today. He's kind of been down in the dumps the last couple of days.
Yeah, there we go.
Everybody's scared to ask him why he's such a downer. Because we don't want to hear the real story of why he's in a bad mood.
Tell us, Debbie.
Yeah, don't you, I was going to say, don't you Debbie me.
No, Karen, right?
No, the Karen would be complaining all the time and being too loud and too obnoxious over everything.
That would be you normally?
Debbie is, I'm blue, oh Droopy, oh Debbie, blue, 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 like Droopy the dog.
Well, thank you. I had no idea. I was completely out of the loop.
You're welcome.
All I hear is the Karen thing. I have a good idea what that is.
It's quite the chase period there.
Yeah, pretty good.
What are we doing today, Justin?
I think we're going to do Tech Tuesday, obviously. It's always Tech Tuesday on Tuesdays. So instead of doing some sketches on the board about front suspension, which everybody was asking about, we're going to take a little bit of a sideways turn and go through the actual post-race prep that we do on the race car. This is something that a lot of people have asked us for. We just haven't had the chance to do it because we're waiting for races to happen so we can actually show you a little bit of it physically on the car. So if you guys have prep questions, then shoot. Got everybody in the back kind of monitoring what you're doing, and we're trying to get to all those if we can. The guys actually didn't want me to do this because they were worried that I might give away a whole bunch of secrets on what we do, but I actually think that what we do is pretty much the same as everybody else that's a successful team. What? You're already interrupting me, Chase?
Before we go into anything, Ethan, and I actually want to know this, and he brought up a great point. When are we going back to Glamis?
Well, that would be after it's hot, man. So it's going to be Camp Razor in October. That'll be the first time that we're back there. So Chase, do me a favor. Try not to interrupt anything I'm saying with something that means absolutely nothing about what I'm saying.
You're welcome.
Okay. So race car prep. I don't think that talking about prep that we do is going to affect anything. All the good teams do what we do, or maybe even more than we do. But you know what? It would help. People that don't race but want to keep up on their car, they're definitely going to maybe learn a couple of things about how we do it. So if you guys have questions, then throw that out there. So last race was the Silver State 300. I don't know why, but I keep forgetting the name of that race. I want to go right back to the mint.
I call it
I don't
the
know why.
Silty State 300.
Definitely silty, horribly silty. And in that race, you guys are going to see a race video that Chase is putting together at some point in time that kind of shows how we went, but I'll give you the synopsis. We lost a belt right off the starting line for some weird reason, and then we broke a shock shaft about 80 miles in. So it put us about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes behind. All we did was finish the race as fast as we could at that point and use it as a test. So the car went through every single mile of the race. Glad we finished. Sucks we had a bad race. But we use that information at all times to better the car, especially when we're taking everything apart. So whether we have a good race or a bad race, we still inspect every single component of the car just as we would if it was a full tilt race that you would win. I think that you can learn more about what's about to break by taking a car apart than by putting one together. So we try to follow a list of prep items. You guys aren't going to be able to see this on the camera, but this is a checklist that we follow through with on what we're going to look at on the car to make sure that everything gets looked at properly and nothing gets forgotten. I'll start at the front. Pretty much know this by memory, so I don't even have to see that. Typically when we get back, the first things that we're going to do, we're going to test drive the car after the race, see if we can't feel something that's weird about it, maybe a big giant clunk that isn't normal, or a squeak or a rattle. We're basically doing a kind of post-mortem after the race to see if we can't feel something in conjunction with our race debrief. So after the race, we all talk about what happened, and if there's something that happened with the car or was acting weird, then I'm going to bring that up with the crew, and they're going to look specifically into those things. After that's been done, then the car gets completely cleaned. We're pulling all the panels off of it, we're pulling skid plates off of it, pressure washing the car, getting all the dirt, mud, silt, rocks out of the way so we can actually see all these parts. After that, we're going to tear apart a lot of the suspension. Pretty much anything that moves on the car, we're going to pull off the car. So let's take a look at arms. Now this is all going back together after this last race. So this is all fairly freshly prepped and going back on. But if this is right after the race that we're going to be removing tie rods, spindles, lower arms, upper arms, hub, drive flange, upright, bearing, and axles. All these components and shocks, of course, are going to come off the car. We're going to inspect every single one of them for cracks, bends. We're going to take a look at things like uniballs, and behind you, Chase, on the bench, I'll show you a couple of these. We're going to look at things like these uniballs and see what kind of play that these might have in them. If you guys have ever played with these, you'll know that they're really tight when they go in, but right now this actually has a little bit of movement vertically. So this is something that we're completely changing and going to a new joint. This one doesn't have the same play as that side does. That means you probably hit more rough stuff on that side of the car than this one. But these obviously get changed every single time. Also, arm bushings, pivot points. We're going to see if these bushings are worn out or if they can be run again. These are fairly inexpensive, so we might just change these no matter what. If things are more expensive, like $100 joints or rod ends, if they're perfectly tight, then we'll run them again. We're looking at all the hardware on the other end of the table as we remove a lot of the stuff from the car. Then we're taking a look at the hardware that comes off. So this is a used bolt. You can tell because it's got, actually this got
Brand new.
It's actually, this is a brand new one. I take it back. I was gonna say it's rusty, but it's not. It's actually got anti-seize on it. But when we pull hardware off the car that's been run, we're taking a look at what's been rubbed on this to see if maybe this has got score marks on it or up on the threads where the tabs are touching it, see if they've been abused. We always change all the hardware on any of the suspension components. All shock, all arm, all spindle, anything that's seen all the abuse that moves heavily, we're changing hardware. Hardware is super cheap, especially when you buy it 50 at a time in a box. And it's not worth saving the same hardware for $1 to have one bolt fail and ruin your race, at least in our mind. Some of the things that we do with hardware, I'm kind of getting sideways off the car, but we'll take hardware that's too long or has too much on it for thread, and we trim that to be perfect length. The reason that we do this is we want to make sure that the shoulder of the bolt, the shoulder is on the mounting tabs. You never want to have the mounting tabs sitting on the threads because the threads are smaller and going back and forth on the tab will oblong holes. So we go through and make sure that all of our hardware is shouldered, which means you buy a bolt that's too long and you cut it down. That way you can fit it perfectly. Back on the car, other things that we're tearing out of it, anything that's got a bushing or a pivot point, we're going to remove, we're going to re-grease. Our billet rack, we pretty much leave in the car unless the thing starts to act funny. We usually leave this thing in all season. Although we do check all the steering joints because this particular joint right here is factory. It's not an aftermarket joint. It's a little bit weak and we have had these break on us, and breaking steering is a bad deal. So we do change these from race to race. We also pull that whole front differential out of the car. The reason is they're fairly weak. It's a bit of a fuse in the car or a weak spot. That diff and or drive line typically has problems. I'll even show you one that we had out of the car. Come over here and take a look. On this side, I got Chase running around doing all kinds of stuff. You guys got a good question or what? What do you got, Matt?
We had JR Quintero was asking if we use our own products for racing.
So JR, yes. Everything that we make and sell to our customers has been vetted on the race car and the pre-runner, and that's actually how we do all of our testing. For instance, that race rack was on the race car and pre-runner for a whole year before we even offered it to the public. So that's how we like to make sure that our stuff works. Back to the diff. So this is a diff that came out, I believe, from the Mint. And in the Mint, we actually podiumed that race. But take a look. I'm not sure if you can see that, Chase, with your camera. This little hole all the way down in there, look around the outside. It's got spider web cracks all over it. That's because the bearing that was in here had been pushed around and it started to crack the housing. So that was a 400-mile race. If it was a 450-mile race, this probably would have failed. That front diff would have exploded and we would have been running in two-wheel drive for the rest of the race. So this type of stuff is what we take these apart for every single time to take a look at and make sure that we're addressing, that we don't have that fail on us in the future. This is a complete diff that's in one of the chase trucks. So it's ready to go at any moment in time. That way, if we do have a problem, we can swap this out. I'll grab that light from you. Thanks, Tony. So inside here, you see inside that hole, you can see all the hardware is safety wired and cross-checked. I'll go over cross-check in a minute. But this allows this thing not to loosen up. So basically the only thing we ever have problems with are now our pinion bearings, and we're working on a fix for that. Other things that we check while they're off the car, front spindle. You'll notice this doesn't look like a normal X3 because it's got a retainer nut. So we actually machine this factory spindle ourselves, thread it, and then make a stainless steel retainer nut. This nut locks the bearing in place because the factory clips. It's easy to push the bearing right out of the hub and have issues and not finish races. So that's something that we make. But for instance, this particular one, take a look at this pin. Yeah, we don't have a pinch bolt in here, but look at that. So this extra play, we don't want to see any of that. So this is coming off the car, it's not going back on. So brand new set on there to make sure we don't have any problems in the future. This is a small amount of the details that we go through, but basically anything that moves or rotates or sees any horsepower is going to get checked. You guys have something good? Nothing yet? Awesome. So another thing we do, stay right there, Chase. I'll go around you. Is we Magnaflux everything in the car. So what's Magnaflux? Well, it's a magnetic way, electronic way of checking for cracks. So this has got power on both ends of these leads. You basically touch it to something or one end of each side, add the power, and it will show you where cracks are. So this is actually a broken part. I'll tell you about this in a minute. But it's hard to see these cracks to the naked eye, right? What I'm doing is putting on some visual dust, which is part of this process. I'm going to touch this to both sides and just give this a tap. Take a look at that. So with power added, you see there's a lot of dust right here. What it's doing is it's pointing out a crack. That dust goes to any cracks that exist. We'll pull the power off, and obviously there is a crack there, but it's going to find the crack for you so visually you can see it. We'll actually take this Magnafluxer and we'll run across the whole chassis. We'll check every single joint that we might think is a problem or that we've seen in the past. We'll check all of the control arms, we'll check all the drive flanges, we'll check anything that's steel basically to make sure that we've got no cracks going into the next race. Another thing this does is it checks intelligence. So if you do this and zap Chase, then we will find out that there's zero intelligence in there whatsoever. That's what I thought.
Nothing.
So it doubles up as other tools.
Have this sweet tool.
We do it when you're not looking, which is obviously a lot. You're not looking. So
do we keep that thing next to the flux capacitor on the car?
Capacitor?
Yeah, it's on the car.
It's a capacitor.
Come on.
Yes, Chase, not a capacitor.
I'm going to keep that thing with me on my car from now on.
Matt, you got a question, buddy?
Yep, Peter Quaid. Being a sealed engine class, are you able to go through the engine to determine weak spots after a race?
Well, since it's a sealed class, which means we have to race the engine in stock form, it's sealed from the pan to the intake to the turbo. So afterwards, yeah, we can tear it apart and look at all kinds of stuff, but it's not going to help us because even if we found out that the rod's weak or a cylinder wall's weak or head gasket's weak, we can't change that on the next engine. It still has to be sealed. So we do find weak spots, but there's nothing we can do about it going forward. We still have to run another seal engine. Any other questions, you guys? All right, next. So one of the things that we've constantly had problems with, as you start throwing power to a car, more horsepower, more weight, and run it through bigger, rougher stuff, you start pushing bearings out of the hubs. That's why there's a clip upgrade. Some people make ZRP. We made this version ourselves, but ZRP makes a nutted style hub that can retain that stuff. Also, we obviously have broken drive flanges. This drive flange that's sitting inside of the bearing of the hub. It also has splines, so once this breaks off, this gets loose, and you end up stripping the splines and you have no drive. One of the things that we've done to kind of fix that is this retaining clip. So take a look at that hub there on the car, Chase. I know Tony didn't want me to show anybody this because now all the teams are going to have it. But we designed this retainer to get rid of cotter pins. Cotter pins locate these, but cotter pins get sheared right off as soon as this becomes loose. So this lock right here stops that from happening. On that last hub that's broken, we broke that about 40 or 50 miles into the last race. And because of that retainer system, this broken hub was kept on the car for the whole rest of the race, 250 miles. So it may not stop the problem from happening, but it's certainly going to extend the time that you're going to have before it completely fails. And finishing races is as important as anything else. If you don't finish, then you can't do better than that. You can't do top 10, you can't podium, you certainly can't win. So keeping it together is important. On the back of the car, well, actually in the middle, we take all the panels off, we inspect every single thing in the car, we put our hand all over the wire loom, we touch everything that's plumbing related, clean air systems, brake lines, which by the way, if you look at these, we run hard lines on the car. Yes, Chase,
I was just saying,
you're dying.
Who cleans out the floorboards on that thing, man?
What are you trying to say?
From the after the post race, who cleans the floorboards?
Actually, I'm going to ask Darren and Tony. Do you guys flip for that?
What's that?
Do you flip a coin on who gets to clean the floor of the car?
No, it's just pressure washed when the car is
Pressure
washed.
wash.
Yeah.
They've both made sure they have a better way of cleaning it than doing it by hand. The reason that Chase is so excited to talk about this
You're in luck.
is because how do you make a whole race without going to the bathroom? Well, we all wear catheters. That tube goes down your leg. So when you take a leak, usually in the pits or when you're not bumping around, all that goes right on the floorboard underneath the pedals. And then you drive through some dust, then the wet floor gets dusty, and then it gets hard pack, and it doesn't come out. So that piss mud is no fun. The guys jump all over it with he's laughing his ass off right now, with pressure washer before ever touching it. Then we call Chase over and say, hey man, take a look at this real quick. Can you lick that and tell me what it is? And usually he does it.
Tastes salty. No good race is won without a golden shower.
God, you're so insane. Back to the car. Thanks for the sideways action on that one. We touch everything on the inside. If you look up in here, you might see some cool stuff. I'll give you another hint. We've got air systems and clean air hoses that run to things like ECUs, because this stuff runs hot and you don't want to lose power steering if you have a hot ECU on one, so we cool them off. We've got multiple fans, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of the race cars run out of electrical power. There's not enough in a stator to run all the fans. So we run an alternator, which we actually built our own kit for this car, which helps that a lot. The next race that we have is Vegas to Reno, high altitude, nighttime, lots of lights, lots of power, everything's being used, and that's important for us. Tony and Matt, what do you got?
James Morgan actually was wondering, will you build a 4-seater or just stick with the 2-seater?
At this time, we're thinking that we're going to stay with a 2-seater for weight. I like a 4-seater because of the wheelbase going through the whoops. But in Best in the Desert, there's honestly not that many races that are loaded with whoops like Score has. So I think we're going to stay short wheelbase and keep the weight down.
I also got Ben Raleigh wants to know, do you guys do oil samples?
So yes, we actually do. We have an oil sponsor. It's ZMax Oil. And we do send all of our oil out for testing, and they will let us know if we've got an engine problem or a transmission problem in advance. It hasn't happened yet, but the testing sure is nice. The engine and tranny package in an X3 is pretty bulletproof, so we have had no issues. Back to the car. So skip the front. When you get to the seating, we always pull the seats out because we want to make sure that the seat mounts don't have cracks in them. Safety first. All the tabs that hold seat belts in are checked. All the seat belts, we make sure that the dates are correct. Anywhere in this cabin area, we come back and we check all cage corners with that Magnafluxer to make sure we don't have any cracks in these spots. Getting back to the back of the car, obviously we're changing oil every single time. We're throwing filters on it every single time. We do change the clutch every single time. It may not be brand new, but it is rebuilt and made new. So we might machine a clutch 2 or 3 times and then we'll toss it and go back to a brand new one and start over. We probably have 6 or 8 clutches around here. What do you think, Darren?
Yeah, we had 7.
Probably
we had
6, 7 you said?
Yeah, we had 7.
So
currently.
7 of them that are constantly rotating and that have different tunes in them for different altitudes or races. And we'll probably throw a new clutch at that whole system every 2 or 3 times. What did you want, Chase? You were pointing at something funny.
I was just nothing. I was saying Crawford Marshall wants to go live with us right now. Let's see.
Crawford.
Hold on.
Yeah, you're taking too long. Let's move on.
Oh, no, here he is. Crawford, what's going on, brother? How are you?
Good, man. You guys are awesome. I know a lot of you guys' products and go to the dunes. We both shirt it up.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having all of our stuff, Crawford. What kind of car do you have, and where are you?
We're in Tucson, Arizona. We have a Can-Am X3 Endurance Turbo. Just in a State Street kit.
Badass, man. How do you like it?
Cars, front rear. Love it, love it.
Bitchin', have you got a question for us?
Not really, just keep up the good work.
Right on, man. Thanks for signing on. That's good enough. I'm glad. If you don't have a question, don't even do it. We'll give you a shirt anyway.
You can't see this. He's got his son here with him. How old's your son? Are you letting him drive yet?
He's 11 years old.
Awesome, man. Start them early. It'll be better. That's great. Hey, let us know what shirts, color, and size you would like, and Chase will send it to you. We hope.
Thank you guys.
Thanks,
See you guys
Crawford.
at Camp Razor.
So back on the car, rear trailing arms are always a concern to us. They get beat up pretty hard, so we're always pulling them off, checking them for cracks, addressing that as needed, and then putting it all back on. Rear hubs are always pulled completely. Rear bearing assembly, drive flanges, all of these components. You see brand new brake pads. We throw brake pads and surface the rotors at least every single time. In the rear, we're checking our radius rods typically for damage, but because this is the same radius rod that we run and sell our chromoly version to everybody else. Because we run a 3/4 inch rod end, we pretty much don't change these all year. These rod ends go the whole season without an issue, so we won't even touch these unless we bend one or bend it too bad where we can't even bring it back. Because sometimes we'll bend a lower and we'll put it in the press and straighten it back out and run it again. So extremely strong. Axles, we're always paying attention to those. We're either going through them, redoing them, re-greasing, and or magging, all that stuff, looking for pits in advance. What do you got? You're looking at me all funny.
Oh, no,
Every
hey,
once in a while you got this funny look on your face like you just farted and you wonder what if I smelled it.
I'm reading everyone's comments. You want more live ones? I can bring them in.
No, if they are part of the subject, then fine, but I can't trust you.
Hey, I mean,
I just can't. You're gonna throw stuff
gotta
in there
give-
that means nothing.
I gotta give the people what they want. Just
All right, well, we'll keep on going. So all this stuff has been put on brand new since the race. Everything is addressed that moves and pivots. Some of the little tricks you might see on the car, you can look back here. This is a brand new mailbox, we dubbed it, that holds the toolkit strapped over, quick pin. So if we pull the tire out of the car, then all your tools are ready to go, as opposed to being inside the car and hard to get. If you look up at the radiator, we're doing some improvement for Vegas to Reno. We're running a different fan. Actually, all the fans are going to be changed to a brushless motor fan that starts at 1 amp startup instead of 30 amp startup to help our charging system for the late night stuff in Vegas to Reno. If you look down in this corner, you'll see an alternator hiding over on the right hand side below that muffler. Well, that's a handmade kit. I can't show you too much of it because it's got a cover over it. But on this side is a rock guard, and that rock guard is protecting this alternator, which is crank driven. So with an alternator, we don't run out of electrical power on the car. It's super important. Everything on our car is also cannon plug and very expensive wiring, like this guy right here. See this firewall plug? So this is a quick disconnect firewall plug. We have the whole loom for the whole car is this style. So going through the firewall, we can pull the motor out with the loom at any moment in time, super quick, and without having any issues that would have any electrical problems. Electrical is a bitch. You have a gremlin you can't find, it might last you multiple races before you ever figure it out. So we spend a lot of money on electrical to make sure that's not a problem. Most of the stuff I just went over is about what we would do. We would call this a normal prep or standard prep for us. We also leak the motor down and change the plugs, make sure that we don't have a cylinder going down on us a little bit early. Our oil tests tell us a little bit about that too. That's kind of it. After we go through all those parts, if we change what we need, we put it all back on. Everything is torqued. Actually, I should show you that. So a lot of people ask us what the little paint marks are on all the hardware. Take a look at all these too. This is called cross-check. Cross-check lets us know that we've put that on, we have torqued it to the spec it needs to have, and it's tight. Also, that cross-check shows us after the race if this has become loose and that bolt is moved. This will be broken, and you can tell that it got loose. So this is a measure, a tool that lets us measure what's staying tight and what's not, and we can make changes to try and fix those problems if we see them. If you guys want to buy that stuff, it literally is called cross-check. That helps everyone, man. Even your dune cars, play cars, and the trail stuff, if you take things off and put them back on, cross-check it, and you will know if it's coming loose on you. What do you got, Matt?
George Keene wants to know, how many hours approximately go into race prep?
Well, it depends on how good you are and how much prep you're going to throw at it. I think that our typical race prep that I just went over is about 40 hours. If we're going to do a Baja 1000 race prep, which is strip the whole car down to the frame, then we're going to throw probably 80 to 120 hours at it, somewhere in that range. So 2 guys 1 week, or 2 guys a week and a half on a big prep, or 1 guy 1 week, 2 guys 3 days, somewhere in that range.
Boomer team, that is a standard procedure for racing cars, but most people aren't doing it, man. That's why we're showing you. What about the people who aren't racing?
Well, I mean, people that aren't racing, hey, you guys, this kind of information I hope helps you, because when you buy some long travel kit you put on yourself, take the time to torque the hardware, cross-check it, and then you'll know if things are loose. Take the time to prep some of your stuff a little better. You'll have longer weekends and not piss off your buddies. And you go on a 10-car ride and you're the only guy that's broken off all the time. You don't want to be that guy.
The man, the myth, the legend, STR Tuning. Do you run an oil catch can? I know Jeff does.
So we don't run an oil catch can on the engine. We run well, actually I should take that back. We run a vent that is fairly large at the top. So if it gets anything other than mist or oil vapor, it will collect and it will drain back into the engine. It is filtered. But we don't run a can that we actually have to drain or anything like that. It's just a gravity drain back to the engine. Also, pop-off is vented into the air filter system between the turbo and the air filter. So when we lift it, it doesn't whistle like a lot of cars do.
Whoa, hold on, we got one. We got a live one, Mr. CNC Morris. He's connecting up. He's very adamant about going on here, Justin.
Adamant? What's adamant mean,
Hey,
Chase?
I don't know.
It's adamant.
Hey. Hi,
Yeah, can you spell adamint?
Hi from Ohio. And hey, Justin, we got a
ADD,
controversial question that
MINT.
keeps on coming up in the question, or in the comments. Are we able to get the gold sticker in candy red? I think that would be pretty sweet. Come on.
So you can get a sticker in any color that you want, but it has to be approved by us and it has to be printed by Wolf Designs in Arizona. So if you have our kit or you're getting our kit, then we can let them know in advance and you can call them and get the sticker. But you can't call them and get a sticker unless your name has been given to them by us first.
Mr.
Just
Morris,
making sure you have all the stuff.
I tried twice, man. It's not letting me sign on with you. Sorry,
All
brother.
right, next thing. You guys have any prep questions that I didn't cover?
What do we recommend for harnesses?
What do we recommend for harnesses? We run
Racer X.
PRP harnesses. It's a 5-point system. It has padding built into the system. If you run a neck restraint like we do or required to do, then you have a narrower upper belt that fits inside that neck restraint and you have to buy belts specifically for it. Or at least I would recommend that you do, otherwise they don't fit very well. So PRP.
I think we should do something fun right now. I think we need to introduce the people behind the car. Who does all the prep? Let's get Tony out here.
Hey Tony, you want to come back out?
Let's get Darren out here, and I want to know
Come on over.
who does the majority of the prep on this car, and then who is cross-checking who at this point?
This
is
is-
it Tony, or is it?
All right,
Darren?
well, Tony's not mic'd because Chase didn't prepare or do his job at all.
Nope.
But this is Tony Geck. Tony is in charge of all the prep on the car. He pretty much, look at those shoes, bro. Those are nice. You knew you were going to be on camera today.
Yeah, right?
Damn. So Tony is mil-spec wire trained. So don't call us to wire up an airplane, but he can. And he treats his car like it's his own baby. I mean, honestly, every single nut and bolt is touched by Tony. Every cross-check is his. Now, Darren, Mr. Hunt on the left, on the right, whichever way you're standing.
Whichever way.
Darren is team manager, and he is also lead fabricator. So all of the fab work on this car is Darren's doing. All of the team logistics is Darren's doing. I would also say all of the comedy relief on this team is Darren's doing.
Thank you.
Right? But any of the new fab work and all of the issues getting to the race, if it's not Jeff, my navigator, jumping on it, it's definitely Darren. So this is a hell of a team. These guys get along about 95% of the time.
That's pretty
the other
good,
5% is pretty funny watching them fight. And also another thing too, when Chase is around here, Tony and Chase have a love-hate affair. They're usually wrestling and checking thumb temp, for sure. One person we need to mention that we have not, and that is my navigator, Jeff Day. Not only Jeff is badass and he's amazing in the right-hand seat, keeps me from crashing, which I would do on a regular basis, but Jeff's wife, Teresa, has just finished her final round of chemo, and she had a celebratory run to the mountains last weekend and got to go on UTVs again, and we are super proud of her for going through all of that and coming out on the backside badass. And she's obviously still got a fight ahead of her, but we're all here to help support her. And if you guys have anyone that you know in that situation, tell them you love them, and like we do with Teresa. There you go, Chase. Backside of the team.
I thought you were going to give Jeff credit for working on the car there for a minute. I got really
No.
Oh my goodness.
No, Jeff works on our hotel rooms and telling me not to crash.
I was gonna say,
both are just as important as the car.
I keep watching these GoPro footage, and for some reason, whenever we have to pull over, it's you getting out of the car and not Jeff. Come on here,
If it's
Jeffrey.
something major, then I want to look at it. If it's, belts and tires and stuff like that, then Jeff will jump out first.
I will say, sometimes I get frustrated with you, Justin. It's almost like this is a science experiment / testing grounds for you, other than a race car.
What do you mean? I don't understand. You mean because I don't talk?
Because every time we drive this thing, you guys are so enlightened to take this thing apart more than you are to drive it. And you know what?
Oh, that's true.
I'm just starting to understand it. It's pretty crazy.
So yeah, I would say so. I mean, the races are tons of fun and we want to win and it's super competitive. But I mean, I kind of get off on taking it apart and learning what's going to fail, because we find out those things early. And if it's a part we can make to make the car better and help other teams and other people, then we're all about it. So our investigative process and checklist that we use to make sure we're checking for every crack and failed part helps us develop parts that are better for everybody else. Actually, Tony's got a good thing, chemicals. Look behind you. I didn't talk about this. You guys, if you're working on your own car, use some good stuff. Use Loctite to handle all the hardware. Use anti-seize to make sure that things don't get stuck after the fact. It's not a Loctite ad, they don't sponsor us, but you guys really, that stuff helps out goes a long ways.
I call it lock tit.
Lock tit?
Yep.
You would. I would. I absolutely agree with that.
I got one.
What do you got for a question?
I got one in capital letters. I think he's yelling at me. Off-road bad mass. How did you guys come up with the shock logo? I'm a small business owner and love the style and have been trying to figure out how to get something like that. Please respond! Exclamation point.
Our logo, I grew up doing a lot of hot rod stuff, and Nitro Fish was cool back then, and Shock Fink was, or not Shock Fink, but Rat Fink was really, really cool back then. So I kind of sketched up the Shock logo the way it is, and then we handed it to Ernie's brother who made it real, and that's how it came about. So a little bit of imagination and a little bit drawing from the past.
We got a live one, Statler, in the chat. Statler, where are you at? What you driving, and what is your question?
I got a 2019 YXZ just for you, Chase.
Woo!
And my question is, how much overall would you say the adjustability on the high speed, low speed kind of counteract one another? Because I have the high speed and low speed turned all the way up the right way to adjust it, and it still wants to bottom out. And I'm probably saying it needs the new springs, but I don't. Do you guys have 19 springs yet?
We do have 19 springs, but we don't have them on the site. The reason is that we actually have to machine our own spring divider. We changed the upper adapter and lower adapter to allow the spring kit to work. It's not a kit that is something we can sell to people to do themselves. It's only something that we make and do on a car while it's in the shop. We do have some parts coming, maybe a couple months from now, that'll allow that to be more bolt-on, but that's the reason why you don't see it on the site. It is available though, and it will help you. You know, if you want to, we can possibly machine up a whole bunch of stuff just for one kit, but it's not something we want to promote to everybody. So if you do me a favor, email Ernie at shocktherapist.com, ERNIE at shocktherapist.com, and let them know, hey, if there's any way you can get one kit, you know, custom done and sent to you, we'll try and get that done. I will tell you, it's going to help your problem. It will not cure it. On that thing, well, and the revalving is going to give you a better range of adjustment for that compression high and low, and it's going to be where you can have the thing in the middle and it not bottom out. The spring is going to help, but it's not going to fix all of it. So consider maybe doing both. If you send us the shocks, we could certainly machine that spring kit and install that on the shocks at the same time while we do the valving.
All right, that might be the way to go then.
It might be.
We did a live on bad suspension geometry. Check it out. It's on YouTube.
I've been keeping up with all your guys' stuff.
We talked a little bit about why the YXZ had some problems.
Chase?
Man, I'm not accepting it. It's not happening.
Yeah.
God, it looks so good, man.
That thing is murdered out. That's a bad mama right there. You got any carbon fiber on that thing? It's dope.
No, just custom paint. I work at a body shop.
Dude, you can tell.
Nice, man. The Chase says the car looked really nice. At least it's not purple like his would be.
Oh, no purple.
Hey, let us know a t-shirt size and a color. We'll have Chase send it to you. And being a YXZ guy, he's probably going to send you 5 shirts.
Oh, awesome. I appreciate it. Man.
No,
Thank you.
but yeah.
Bye.
Thanks. What do you got, Darren? Have you guys got anything?
Yeah, a lot of people want this race shirt, Justin.
Race shirt's not available. You guys have to work your ass off on the race team to get this shirt. It's very, very rare.
How did Darren get one?
That's pretty good.
That's pretty
Steve.
good.
Wow.
I was here before the shirts.
What do you got?
I got Corey Hosfield says he's got a set of Alba racing wheels with stock hubs and lug nuts. His wheels keep coming loose. He sets the nuts to 120 pounds. He wants to know what he can do to stop for them to stop coming loose.
Okay, so I do not know what the taper is on an Alba wheel and the taper on your lug nut, but something I've seen a lot of is that the lug nut taper might be like, say, 60 or 45 degrees, and the taper that's actually machined into the wheel is different. So contact Alba, ask them what that taper is, and then make sure you have the lug nut that has the same exact taper. If they're different, they'll always loosen up. That's number one. Number two, wheel studs. If you put a good 300M hardened wheel stud on there, then you won't have any stretch, and that could help you too. That'll be my first suggestions. Chase, you were dying for a second, probably because someone was signing on, huh?
Justin, I got a fever.
So do me a favor.
And the only thing that could
Cowbell?
cure it is giving away a shirt. Hold on, we got a live. Oh, and it's failing.
You guys, I wish you guys could see Chase's reaction when he has somebody that's going live. It's like a kid who just got his first fish, and he's overreacting with this pole in his hand, and he gets the fish up to the water, and it falls off the hook, and he goes, wah. That's exactly what he's doing behind the camera when someone wants to go on live and they don't come on.
Steve0714, I heard Chase has a purple race shirt.
Yes, he does. He's got purple race underwear too. It's ski-back.
James Alexander said purple's for pimps.
Pimps? No. I would argue. I would argue against that. All right, no more questions. Doesn't sound like you got much. That's cool. Hopefully you guys liked our little prep one. This is a very mellow prep list, but you know what? It goes a long way for play cars. So use the information if you possibly can. Help yourself if it's something that you're doing to the car, and you can use what we've given you a little bit. In the meantime, if you guys have any questions about components, products that we sell, then give us a call at 623-217-4959. If you want to purchase any of those things, then give us a contact on the website at shocktherapist.com. We're excited to go racing, man. Hopefully they don't cancel Vegas to Reno. We're going to go testing next week. Maybe we'll give you a little bit of a test video on the next feed. Who knows? Thanks for tuning in.